And we are recording, everybody.
Welcome, welcome, everyone. We're just giving folks a few minutes to join us. Thanks for everyone that's here right at 7.
The Parent Teacher Association. Oh, it's a very long list. 31 people.
Antonia, you're on mute.
We've got about 24 participants, I guess. All right, what do you think? Should I begin? Yeah, okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to PTAlink's first webinar of the 2024-25 school year. Back to school, back to PTA basics. I hope everyone's having a smooth transition back into the school year. I know September can be rough, but we thought we'd kick off our webinar series by focusing on the basics of PTA executive boards. My name is Antonia Ferraro Martinelli, and I am the PTAlink coordinator. I've been a parent leader in District 15 for quite a long time. I've been a PTA secretary. I've been a PTA president at MS 88. I'm currently CEC 15's president. And now I'm going to turn it over to my executive director, the wonderful Naya Berg from New York Appleseed.
Hi, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. I am going to be in the chat room. I already have been liking different folks introducing themselves. As Antonia said, my name is Naya Berg. I'm the executive director of New York Appleseed, which you might be wondering, wait a second, I signed up for a PTAlink event. That is because in 2023 in the spring, Rachel Fine, who was the previous founder of PTAlink, she decided that her baby had graduated. And we, with caring hands, loved the idea of being able to support parents and parent leaders and empower them within the school system. And so we took over and acquired PTAlink, the platform and the website. And so this is our first foray into really hosting one of the first of a workshop series to help parent leaders across New York City in navigating the very complex alphabet soup of a system that we have. And with that, I am going to be quiet. We have wonderful parent leaders here and our coordinator, Antonia, to lead us through the rest of the event. And I will also be looking at the chat for questions. So if you have questions during the presentation, I'll be keeping my eye out as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Naya. So we have a great group of speakers, some very experienced parent leaders here tonight. They really know their stuff. We have Katrina Long from, she's the PTA treasurer at Arts and Letters 305 United. Katrina, do you want to just come on and say hello?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Katrina Long. I am a former co-treasurer at Arts and Letters 305 United. I'm currently the co-president at the school, and I'm very excited to be here. So I'll be talking tonight about treasurer. Yeah.
And we have Camille Casaretti, who has worn many hats, and she continues to collect more hats. She was a PTA president at PS 32. She was the president of CEC 15 and a member of CCHS, and she was just seated on the panel for education policy. Camille.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much, Antonia. So a little bit about me. I attended public school from kindergarten to 12th grade, and then I went to a SUNY college. I am a public school parent of two, one that just graduated and another in high school. And I'm starting my 11th year of parent leadership and working towards a master's degree in education policy. I've held a lot of PTA positions, as Antonia listed off. Besides PTA president and SLT member in all three schools, elementary, middle, and high school. I also held a position as PTA and SLT secretary, bylaws chair, audit chair, wellness chair, after school coordinator, and education policy chair. So that's a lot. But it's been a lot of years, and all of those roles gave me an understanding of what the best practices are for working with school administrators, educators, and families, and with the goal of supporting all children in the school. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. And we have Kimberly Washington, who is currently the PA secretary at PS 345 and a member of CEC 19. Kim, welcome.
Thank you, Antonia. Again, yes, my name is Kimberly Washington. Everyone calls me Kim. I am first a product of the New York City public school system. I am in a blended family, mom of 7, with children ranging from ages 35 to 10, with the two 10-year-old twins being the ones who are still school-age children. Currently, I do serve as PA secretary, but I've also in the past served as PA president and vice president. And as Antonia had mentioned, I am a member of CEC 19, and I'm excited to be here this evening.
Welcome, Kim. And we have another guest speaker, Ed Castro. Is Ed Castro here?
Hey friends.
Hello.
Hi everybody. It's an honor and pleasure to be in this space with you all today. And I look forward to sharing the little knowledge I have with you all today.
Thank you. Ed is the Family Leadership Coordinator in the office of Alan Chang, who is the high school superintendent of the Consortium International and Outward Bound School. He's a parent himself, and he has supported so many families as both a PC and an FLC. So thank you so much for being here, Ed. So PTAlink is a website created by a parent, Rachel Fine. Everything that you need to know pretty much about running a PTA can be found on our website, and it's 100% free. So I know a lot of PTA parents do their work late at night, and those are times when you can't reach out to your PC or your FLC, and we're here for those late night questions. So go to our website, use it. It's a free resource. So what is a PTA? Well, a PA is a parent association, and a PTA is a parent teacher association. We actually get that question quite a bit. It is the official organization of the parent body in a school, and it's mandatory under state law and chancellor's regulations to have a PA or PTA in every school. Who is eligible? The parents of all children including step parents, legally appointed guardians, foster parents, and persons in parental relation. They are all automatic members of the PTA. And it's really a vehicle for parent involvement in the school. It allows parents to have a say in the education of their children and how the schools are run themselves. It allows you to take action and organize amongst your cohort parents. You can provide input into school policies, and it allows you to advocate for all the children in the school and collaborate with your community members and your elected officials even. On the next slide, we have a little pop quiz that I'm actually going to turn over to Kim Washington, because Kim is on a PA, not a PTA. And so she has some insight into this question.
Thank you, Antonia. I didn't know if we were going to give anybody any chance to say anything, or you just want me to go ahead and give that answer?
Why don't you ask the question and see what answers we can get from the audience?
Okay, yes. How does a PA become a PTA?
From the bylaws.
Okay.
Was that Lahora Montgomery? I don't.
That was Carolyn.
Carolyn?
Go ahead, Lahora.
PA turns a PTA when they vote on it in a committee and the parents pick the teachers and vote on the teachers of becoming a part of the PTA. But it's all about the general, parents voting on it becoming a PTA and voting on the parents that supposed to be a part of the PTA.
Thank you, Lahora. Okay, yes, PAs vote to amend their bylaws to include teachers. Parent members of a PTA may also vote to revert back to a PA. A PTA may also amend its bylaws to extend membership to other categories of staff, like paraprofessionals or school aides, school secretaries, for example, but school supervisory staff is not allowed, such as principals or assistant principals. And yes, they cannot be members on the PTA in the school. As Antonia said, my school currently does have a PA, and in talking to other parents in other schools who have PTAs, and just my own observation, as I'm kind of a Instagram stalker of PTAs all across New York City. So if they have an Instagram, I kind of join. And there's power in it when you involve the teachers, because teachers are mainly the first point of contact parents have. And when you see teachers kind of involved, the parents kind of are more inclined to be involved, because I guess they feel that they're the person that spends the most time with their child in the school. So while PAs can be good, there is, in my opinion, great strength in having a PTA over a PA. And right now we're currently in the process. We're going to add it to our agenda. We're going to put it out to the parents in our November meeting, and we're going to vote to see if the majority wants it to convert to a PTA.
Thank you, Kim. That's great insight. Thank you so much. So let me go to the next slide. So PTAs and PAs are both self-governing bodies, but they are governed by the Chancellor's Reg A660. Everybody should have a copy of that, and I read it multiple times a week, I think, because I can't memorize it and I keep forgetting things and I keep having to reference it. It's a bit of a Bible for every PA PTA. So what does it mean to be self-governing? They adopt their own bylaws, they hold regular meetings with membership, they elect their own officers, and they determine their own goals and priorities. And PTAs also collaborate. This is something PTAlink is really beginning to study a bit more. It's quite obvious, I think, how PTAs would collaborate within their own within their own schools, even though that can be challenging. But it's less obvious how we can collaborate between schools, both district-wide and citywide. And there are actually some interesting examples that I'm coming to. For instance, I learned about a PTA Buddies pilot where a school, PSMS 262 in District 16, buddied with PS 321 in District 15 to do a school supply matching fundraiser. And so for every parent that purchased a school supply through the catalog, PS 321's PTA purchased the same school supply and donated it to PSMS 262. So there are interesting ways that PTAs can join forces, share information, learn from each other, have joint meetings, raise funds together. Your president's council can actually have a bank account and a treasurer and potentially raise funds across the entire district. And so we're looking more and more about, for examples of these types of collaborations. And so I'm wondering if anybody on this call has had any experience collaborating with another PA or PTA. So just raise your hand or chime in. We have somebody raise Dash C.
Hi, yes. I've been a part of where I was able to get within the district not in the Bronx, in another county. And we used to every PA or PTA, we would gather together, close the street down, have massive either flea markets, sales, anything that we can get together, anything that their expertise or whatever they're good at, they bring it forth to the public and bring all the parents together that way as well.
That's great. So it was like a joint street fair.
And many different kind of activities, not just the fair, but like in whether it was a sports game or a field day or it's so many things that I have done with the different districts, all within our own together. But I've been wanting to do that here in the Bronx.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are looking at ways to do this, and we would love for parents to share their experiences on PTAlink. We can publish articles by parents. So if you have a certain experience that you would like us to publish, please reach out to us at PTAlink.org and we can help you get that out there. We have another, somebody's in the waiting room, I think. All right. I'll move on to the next slide. So PTAs also include A660 is very clear that the PTA's board must be inclusive of the entire school body. They're responsible for encouraging and facilitating parent involvement. Paying dues is not a condition, cannot be a condition of membership. Everybody in the school is by default a member. And inclusion is really this constant practice that we always have to ask ourselves, who is in the room and who is not in the room, and what do we have to do to get them in the room? What are we not doing? So none of us are perfect. inclusion is hard, and it's something we continually work at. I'm often getting questions about how to provide translation services. Often PTAs have to prioritize things like that in their budget. So inclusion isn't just something we talk about. It's something we prioritize in our budgets, we have in our goals, we have in our bylaws. So that we just continually work at it. And so I'm wondering how your PTAs have met the challenge of inclusion. Does anybody want to share an experience? Well, if you do want to share an experience and write about it, we are here to publish that as well. So write to us about your experiences of including everyone in your school community. And PTAs obviously support students. They educate parents about the curriculum and the school rules and the procedures. They provide our parents with opportunities for becoming involved in their child's classrooms and outside their child's classrooms. It gives you the ability to participate in your SLT meetings. PTA sponsor numerous enrichment programs like artist residencies, for instance. They run the after-school programs often. They foster a cooperative relationship between school staff and parents, and they can raise funds to supplement our school budgets in terms of specials, arts, music, librarians. So they're very important bodies, PTAs. And so now we have a chance to talk to some of our experienced executive board members about roles and responsibilities. The PTA's executive board runs the organization. It also serves as the parent voice and agent for action. Parents elect board officers to represent their interests and act on their behalf. The board must consult with them regularly and hold votes on important issues and decisions. And when a PTA member is elected a PTA officer, they have new responsibilities. They do have to provide their contact info to the school, and that is usually an email address. The PTA provides their entire school community with communication access to the PTA. They utilize all modes of communication solely for the PTA use. PTA officers attend trainings and they become familiar with all of the relevant regulations, A660, A655, which governs SLTs, and the PTA's bylaws. So now I'm going to turn it over to Camille Casaretti to talk a little bit about president's roles and responsibilities.
Hey, everyone. Thank you, Antonia. So I'm going to go through the slides and talk a little bit about what each bullet point is. And I'm sure some of you have a sense of responsibilities within your PTAs, but if you've never been a president before, this will probably feel very new to you. So the presidents reside over all of the PA and PTA meetings. You'll find a description of the roles and responsibilities for the PTA president in your PTA bylaws document or in the A660 document. These jobs are detailed very clearly in the DOE bylaws template as well. So the president is expected to run the monthly meetings. It's generally a good practice to give others on the executive board some speaking roles so that everyone on your board becomes comfortable with just public speaking in general. This can be really important because if you, as the president, become sick or are unavailable one day, you don't want to just cancel the meeting because you can't come. You want to make sure that there are other people who are really up for the task. And so allowing them to be a part of the meeting, possibly even run a meeting here and there is really good opportunity for them. And it also builds succession. When you're planning the agendas for each month, it's useful to refer to the previous year's agenda. If you're a new PTA president, if you're even new to the school, you may not know how things were done in the past, and it's always good to just take a look at what others had done. You might want to change things. You might want to discuss some of that with the principal. Maybe some of it was great and some of it wasn't great, and you wouldn't want to repeat the same. But you should be able to find these documents in the June Transfer of Records book. Or perhaps your PTA has an archive of documents on their website. I used to draft out all the agendas for the entire year and then share them with my team for review and editing so that they could have some input as well. And that works out pretty well for collaboration purposes and just for keeping everybody on the same page and in the loop. These agendas are really important tools, especially if you're using them to forecast future events, because all of that will roll into the responsibilities of the treasurer when you're doing budgeting. So the president appoints committee chairs. Your PTA may not have a lot of committees. These are typically laid out in the bylaws. And although the PTA president would normally appoint a committee chair, you might want to consult with your board in case there are any other suggestions. Consider the diverse populations of your student body when selecting leaders for these committees. Hopefully your executive board and committee leaders represent your student body in all ways. You want others to see themselves in this work. It really helps to bring people in and again to build succession. Our next bullet point is attends and reports on SLT and President's Council as a member of the building response team. So the PTA president is going to wear a lot of hats. Once you become a PTA president, you're going to realize that you're able to juggle a lot. And so besides the general monthly PTA meeting and your executive board business meetings, the PTA president is also required to sit on the school leadership team and is a mandated member of the building response team. The BRT is also known as safety committee. Those meetings are once a month, and the PTA president really should be in the room. The president is also invited to the district president's council meeting. And when giving the monthly president's report, you should discuss what happened in all of these meetings, with the exception of the BRT meeting, which is actually a confidential meeting. And the purpose of it being confidential is to protect the safety and security of the building and those in it. You are going to be talking about fire drills and evacuation procedures, which doors are being used. And so all of these things are not what you would want to put out to the public. And you're in that room to be the parent voice in those conversations, but the information in those meetings really should remain confidential. If the quantity of meetings becomes way too heavy for you, please consider assigning an alternate. This could be one person or one for the team. I actually started out as an alternate to the President's Council. I was a vice president, and our president wasn't able to make the district meetings. And so I said I would go. And sitting in those district meetings really made me realize that I enjoyed that higher level oversight and sort of pushed me off in my path towards getting higher up with the parent leadership in the DOE world. So it's a good idea to make sure that your executive board agrees with who you are choosing as an alternate. I ended up as the alternate by default because nobody else wanted to do it. Sometimes you fall into that category as well, but it's good to, you know, sort of get the blessing of your team if you're going to be choosing an alternate, because this person would be representing the PTA when they speak. So you want to make sure that they don't have any personal agendas and will speak for the entire student body when they're participating in these public meetings. The PTA president also facilitates the meeting to elect the Title I PAC chair and alternate. So that's a mouthful. For those of you who are not familiar with Title I, the only schools that receive federal funding through the Title I section of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act will have a Title I Parent Advisory Council. Lots of acronyms here, and so I'm going to try to sift that out for you. But these additional funds provide supplemental financial assistance in order to support populations of children from low-income families. As the PTA president, you are meant to help find candidates for this PAC and to run the election to establish a chair to the Parent Advisory Council. A line item on your monthly agenda should include a report from the Title I PAC chair. It's really important that they are making an appearance and reporting out to the PTA membership, because there's a lot of money coming from the federal government and they will be able to explain how the school is using that. The PTA president also establishes themselves as one of the signatories on your bank account. It's important to have multiple signatories in case the typical check signers are not available. Usually it would be one of the treasurers and maybe a secretary. It could really be anybody in your team. But what I've found over the years is that it's usually just two people that end up signing most of the checks. Check your bylaws. These two people cannot be partners or live in the same household. There's some rules around that. But do make sure that you are a signator on the checking account. It really helps for the president to be on that account for any kind of changes that might occur down the line financially and with the bank account. And do always let your treasurer know that you're writing a check before you do it, just so that they are aware of everything that's happening. I noticed Naya, oh, sorry, question. Okay, so I'm going to take questions at the end. We have a question and answer period, but if you do have a question that you want to drop in the chat, you can do that too. I'm happy to answer it when I stop talking, or we can wait until the end. So thank you so much. Last bullet point, executes the bylaws. So as the president, you must follow the rules laid out in your PTA bylaws and ensure that others are also following these policies. So sorry. Bylaws can help you when you have questions or just when you want a reference for protocol. Next slide, please. And if we could just take a 1 second break, I need to go get a glass of water. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Antonia, while she
Yes.
has the break, I know there was one question that came through that was, do all SLT meetings have to be in person?
They are, okay. So they're subject to open meetings law. I know that. And I think you have to have, I have to read a 655, but I believe you would have to have a quorum in person in your school building And then maybe some members can be hybrid. But I would have to read A660 and get back to you. But they are subject to open meetings law and have to take place on school property. I don't know if all of the members have to be there.
We'll
I
return
think some might. Yeah.
We'll return back to Camille, but we also have Katrina, who also came back from her first SLT meeting, and I'll remember those questions, but she's also answering in the chat. Camille,
Okay.
go right
Okay,
back.
great. Thank you so much. Sorry for that interruption. So the question that someone was asking was, can the president be the PAC chair as well? And the answer is yes, but it's not advisable. It's not advisable for a number of reasons, because as a parent leader, we actually want to build capacity and allow others to learn how to do this work. And so if you're sort of owning all of these titles and these like high level positions all at the same time, it means that you're going to have to be in all different places at the same time. And sometimes they're going to be conflicting, which would leave the school and the parent body in a position where they're being represented appropriately. So I would say, unless the situation is truly desperate, and when I say desperate, I mean you've tried 3 months in a row to elect somebody and you just can't find anybody, then I think it makes sense. But generally speaking, I would say it probably isn't the best rule of thumb. So president's top 10 tips. The principal is the school leader, and so it's important to have respect and collaboration with the principal. Now, the PTA can be a powerful ally for the school, or you can become fast enemies. And in most cases, principals do want to collaborate and work with their PTA. But if you are going to be disrespectful and start placing demands on the principal or staff, you'll see that your own ability to operate within the school structures becomes extremely complicated. The best working relationships that I've seen are when presidents schedule regular appointments to talk to principals rather than just knocking on their door throughout the day. And I know a lot of principals say they have an open door policy. I would just say, don't abuse it, because sometimes that might go away. So the PTA is not the school. It's a good idea to maintain boundaries. So the principal is the school leader and the PTA president is the PTA leader. The principal isn't going to tell you how to do your job, I hope, and you shouldn't be telling them how to do theirs. There's like a happy medium there, and you need to find it. A lot of this is about personalities, but you will definitely find your way. If you're feeling unhappy with something you're seeing at the school level, typically I would say the best place to discuss this would be at the SLT meeting, especially since you're a mandated member there. But if you feel like the subject is sensitive, you could ask for an executive session, or you could discuss it privately with the principal. But the overarching concept is to be polite and respectful. I'm so sorry, I must be getting sick. Also, just in regards to boundaries, if your best time to work on PTA projects is at midnight, I know Antonia was talking about this before, don't expect to get an answer. Don't come to school the next day and say, I sent you an email at midnight and you didn't respond. And it's like 7:30 in the morning. And why didn't you respond to me? So, believe it or not, like I was doing those crazy things when I first started. I would just be up all night long and people would see me in the morning and say, how are you even awake? You were emailing people at 4 a.m. So like I just had to rein myself back in. I was so excited about doing the work, but it's just bad to do that. You need to be sleeping when you're supposed to be sleeping. And one night here and there, yes. Late night, crazy project deadline, yes. But don't make that a regular habit. It's just is really not a good idea. Like you, other PTA members have families and work and in-home responsibilities, and they want to be part of the team. And if you're creating an environment where the boundaries are just too out of control, nobody's going to be able to participate like that. And to that end, some people like to work alone and others like to work in groups. So whatever your working style is, do it. But do send regular updates to your team, because poor communication can lead to miscommunications and to hurt feelings. And once you get into that circle, it's really hard. It can create obstacles where two people are overlapping efforts, and so you come to the meeting and you say, oh, look at what I did. And then the person next to you is like, I did that too, and it took me 10 hours. Why didn't you tell me you were working on it? And like, these are things that could be so simply resolved by just being open and transparent about what you're doing. But just try to be careful about how open and transparent you are, because you don't want to
Se
overwhelm
agarró su
people.
tapita, bótala de una vez para la basura. Julián también se agarró tiene esta mala mañana.
Thank you. Okay, so center the needs of the whole school. You may have joined the PTA for a myriad of reasons, but now that you are the PTA president, you must speak for and represent all of your student populations. Every school has a different student body makeup, but it is guaranteed that there will be a variety of students with socioeconomic needs, students with disabilities, English language learners, students living in temporary housing, and foster children. All of these distinct populations have different needs, as do their families. Now, if you have a very active PTA, you might start feeling overwhelmed right away. It is critically important for your own mental health and to secure your time with your family that you learn to delegate. This is something I learned way too late in the game. But once I learned it, it really saved my life, and it gave me opportunities to sort of go in different directions and learn more than I ever could have if I just tried to own all of those projects at the same time. So in some cases, people will ask you to take on projects. Unfortunately, that is kind of rare, but it can happen. And so when someone comes to you and says, oh, I'd really like to run the book fair, you just say yes. And even if you thought you wanted to do that yourself, just like when someone's coming and they say, I'd really like to do that, give them that opportunity. And it doesn't mean that you have to back away from that project, but allowing others to take on these roles like helps them to learn and experience being part of the team. So they may not be on the executive board, but they love to do this fundraiser. So let them do it. Maybe someday they will be on the executive board. Maybe one day they'll be the PTA president. And so that's how you build succession. You don't have to remove yourself entirely, stay involved, but kind of from a distance. And the more you can allow others to take part in this work, the easier the work is going to be for everyone. Because what I've noticed in the middle schools especially is that you have a small core team of people, at best 6, and they are doing all of the work and just running themselves ragged. Like in elementary school, you might be able to gather 20 people who are willing to work with you. So the faster you learn this skill with delegation and allowing others to take on a role, and don't panic if it isn't going exactly the way you would have wanted to. Like, we're all going to learn through trial and error in this space. So, I guarantee that if you do these things, you'll see before you know how smoothly the work will flow. Don't place a lot of demands and timeframes on people that you're working with. We're all volunteers with outside responsibilities. Like, you do the work when you can. So if somebody says, I'll give it to you by Wednesday, don't start asking them on Monday, are you sure you're going to have it done? And then Tuesday comes, are you sure you're going to have it done? You know, sort of send like just a general reminder, like, oh, I'd like to meet with you on Wednesday morning to discuss the project. But like, don't impose your anxiety on them, because that's going to end really badly. Let me think. When you start overcommitting is when you're going to feel really stressed and anxious. And this is inevitably going to impact your work or family life. So just try not to take on too much. You know, when you start feeling stressed out, that is the clear sign that you've taken on too much, and try to just back up a little bit and find people to help you to take some of that off your plate. Ideally, we want to ensure that everyone can be included by translating your flyers and meeting agendas and engaging interpreters for languages other than English and sign language in some cases. Just include others and involve, you know, you could move the times and dates of your PTA meetings. We were able to do that with a lot of success. We found that more people were able to come in the morning than in the evening, which we did not expect. Some schools even meet on Saturdays and incorporate student activities and childcare for their meetings. So know when to say no. You're going to have a lot of people reaching out to you with requests. So try to prioritize the items that only you can do and delegate to others. Follow up so they know that you're in the loop and paying attention. And don't forget to say thank you, because quick notes of thanks can go a really long way. Saying thank you is great, but being detailed in your gratitude will help people stay connected to the PTA and maintain the quality of their work. So telling someone that you appreciate their timeliness or creativity or integrity really helps them to hone in on that talent or skill that is working for you and allows them to see themselves in this work. And so hopefully they'll take on more in the future and bring other people in. So thank you so much for your time. And I know that was a lot.
Camille. Thank you, Camille. I obviously learned a lot from Camille because she delegated to me. All right, let's move on to Katrina Long, who has just become a PTA co-president, and she is a very successful treasurer. So she is going to give us her view of what it takes to be a good treasurer.
Hi, everyone. Well, thank you, Camille. I will make sure to take all of those tips into consideration. I'm like taking pictures, like, wait, I need all of these tips. Thank you. So yeah, so the treasurer checklist. So first, I just want to start by saying I just recently got braces. So please bear with me. I'm going to try to speak clearly and not bite my tongue. So budget development. So the treasurer's main job is to create the budget. And the current treasurer creates the budget for the incoming treasurer. So there are times where you're overlapping, where you're the current treasurer and then next year you're going to be the next treasurer. So you are inheriting the budget you created. But there are also times where you inherit a budget that was essentially created by the previous treasurer. And so, you know, you will be presenting a budget and even maybe your first or second monthly report on transactions that you didn't actually do because it came from the previous board. But your number one goal as a treasurer is to create the budget. So you have to keep a record of all income received. So every month, aside from keeping a record of all the monthly transactions, you have to have a report. So during the general PTA meeting and also during your e-board meeting, you will be presenting all income received and also all income spent. So you have to keep a record of the income and then also a record of the expenditures. So every meeting you report on both. You can do a slideshow, you can do a graphic presentation. When I was a treasurer, I was actually a treasurer for 3 years, and I had a co-treasurer all 3 years. And every year that I was a co-treasurer, we presented the budget different ways. One year we did slideshows for every presentation. One year we did more of a detailed spreadsheet report. So yeah, each year it was like a collaboration between me and my co-treasurer on how we were going to present the monthly transactions. So in addition to presenting the monthly transactions, you also have to prepare the tax forms. So if you are a 501c3, you have to file your taxes, and you also have to prepare a January report and a June report. That is just so important in terms of keeping and maintaining your 501c3. So a 501c3 is basically a nonprofit organization. Not all schools have a 501c3, but when you do have a 501c3, there are certain times that you have to fill out certain paperwork just to maintain your 501c3, which is basically that you're a nonprofit organization. Please let me know if I'm going too fast or if there are any questions in the chat. All financial reports are due in January and in June. So those are the interim report will be in January, and then your annual report will be in June. And so basically you would show where your budget began with, where your budget is at in the middle in January, and then in June it will basically show your whole entire budget for the school year from basically where you started to where you end at the end of the year. There are fundraising activity reports. Every single fundraiser has to have an activity report. The event organizer is usually the person that is in charge of submitting their activity report. So the way we do it at our school, my lovely Kim is on the line, not Kim Washington, but another Kim that's on the line. She's our fundraising event coordinator, and she basically does all of the events. So before the event, she will submit what she wants to have in the event, and then after the event there's an activity report. So all of the expenditures are actually purchased through the treasurers. So every school has their own unique way of how they go about expenses. Some people pay for things up front and then they put in for a reimbursement. The way we have it in our school, for the most part, we have a funding reimbursement link or an upload where you can put in your wish list to be funded, and the treasurers purchase things directly. So we try to avoid having so many reimbursements, and we do more of a direct buy through the treasurers. So money has to be deposited into the account within roughly 24 to 48 hours. So if there's a fundraiser that has physical cash on hand, if you have a lockbox, if you have a safe, after you have an event, you definitely want to deposit this money into the account within like a reasonable standard amount of time. And that time's usually written in your bylaws. I know there was a lot of talk about the bylaws. Where do we find them? You're usually able to get a copy of your bylaws at every general PTA meeting. So if you are at a PTA meeting, there should definitely be a copy of the bylaws present. You can always send an email to your treasurers, send an email to your e-board, and ask for a copy of your bylaws. They're public record. Anyone in the school can request a copy of the bylaws. So, it's funny where Camille said, when you're the president, you just like dive into this rabbit hole of like the bylaws. But that's when I was a treasurer, it also became like a thing for me. Like I was like immersed in the bylaws, and which is probably why I'm like co-president now. But once you have a grasp of the bylaws, it's very easy to do your job and just flow into the ins and outs of like what to do, because you are like working with a frame of like basically what tells you what to do. And your bylaws are basically created by your CR 660, which they mention are the chancellor's regs. So if you base your bylaws on the chancellor's regs, then you really know your bylaws and you're working within them. It just makes your day-to-day transactions much, much smoother. Signing PA and PTA checks. Every school has a different system of how they do it, but as Camille said, the president and the treasurer are usually the co-signers on the checks. The treasurer's main job is to write all of the checks. I know that when I started on the PTA, there was no amendment in the chancellor's regs to use debit cards. So I started as a treasurer in this world of like everything was a check. I remember ordering 350 checks and just like never imagining writing 350 checks. And then here I was in March ordering more checks. And I was like, who would have known that I was going to write 356 checks by March? But before the chancellor's regs were amended to allow debit cards, we were only allowed to use checks. Everything had to be paid through a vendor by check, or someone paid for something up front and then they got reimbursed. So I learned a lot about writing checks. I've written many, many checks, many checks. Yeah, so the president is a co-signer on the checks. We could have a vice president as a co-signer on the checks. It is best to have as many co-signers as possible, because I remember when I was a treasurer, my president lived across the street from me, and it was just so easy to go right across the street and get that co-sign, you know? And then there were times that he was on vacation and he was out of town, but then my co-treasurer had a meeting in the building, and then I knew I was just gonna see her on this day and this time. And so the more co-signers you have, the easier it is to just get things signed. Now we live in a world, you have a debit card, so much easier to get things done. But even with the debit card use, you still should have some kind of electronic record where you're all or both acknowledging that you know about this transfer. So what we did at my school is basically create, it's a Google form, and it's a reimbursement form. So a person would go use the Google sheet, fill in their form of either what they want to purchase or their reimbursement. They upload their receipt, and then there's a column for the check number, or there's a column for paid by electronic dispersion, and then there's a column where the treasurers can put their initials, acknowledging that they're aware of this purchase and their cosign. So you know, I don't know what other schools do. This is like a unique model that we have. You know, we have a lot of eyes on our checkbook. So we do have, when I was a co-treasurer, one year it was me and 2 people, another year it was me and 1 person. This year we have 3 co-treasurers and a co-treasury secretary. So we are like fully staffed with the checks and the check writing and the check signing. But one of the most important things is the assisting of the June transfer of financial records. I was a treasurer for 3 consecutive years. And within our bylaws, we have 3 years where we can stay within a position. And then if no one wants to run for that position, you can actually run again for a 4th year. And so I actually was treasurer and then vice president and then treasurer for 3 consecutive years. So I've actually been on my PTA for 5 years. And this is my 6th year as now co-president. So I've worn different hats and I've like juggled around in different spots. But when you are a co-treasurer, it is so important to transfer over the records. Whether you're staying on board or inheriting a co-treasurer, one of the most important meetings is the transfer of records meeting. Because you're actually, for us, for example, we have a very large bank account and we have many transactions. And it's a lot to explain to someone that's taking on this role and responsibility. Where do you find all these documents? How do you access everything? And so I came onto the board my first year in 2020, the year of the pandemic, and there was no treasurer. And so there was an emergency election, and I actually came in November. And so I was having a transfer of records, not in June, but in November, and I was inheriting a budget of a merged school because the school had now merged. And so it was the most unique situation. We had several meetings, what was her name? I forgot right now off the top of my head, but the treasurer at the time, I think her name was Randy. Oh my gosh, it's gonna come to me in a minute.
Ray.
But Ray McDonald, thank you so much. Yes, it was Ray. I think I met with her. We had dinner at we met because it was a lot to transfer records because you're merging a school. So you're transferring the records of the previous school, but then you're also inheriting the new records of the school that you merged with. And so we met at least 5 or 6 times. And bless her heart, she really helped me so much. But I say all of that to say the transfer of records meeting is so important, giving them access to the bank account, you have 30 days to transfer over the signage on the bank accounts, letting everyone know the Google passwords, the email passwords, and it has to be done within a timely fashion because if your school is proactive and you're meeting over the summer, you really want to have all of those records transitioned over within a timely fashion so the new treasurer is picking up within their summer meetings. So I say I talk really fast. I don't know if there are any questions in the chat.
There was one question on can the treasurer attend meetings virtually? And then another question that was asking about EIN numbers.
Okay, so yes, the treasurer can absolutely attend meetings virtually. We have hybrid model meetings. There were many times that I was virtual presenting a meeting and people were in person. And I mean hybrid, I was virtual and they were in person. It's all within the flexibility. If you have a co-treasurer and they're in person, you can decide or agree who's going to do the presentation. But you want to, if it's what's convenient for you, if the meeting is in person, but you're the treasurer and you're on Zoom, then you can present on Zoom, but there has to be a monthly transaction report. So in the event that you can't make it, there should be someone else that can present that monthly report in your place. It can be a vice president, a recording secretary. I know that I had a lot of support from our recording secretary at the time who had been on the board 5 years before I got there. So there's always someone that can support you. So in the event that you can't present, whether it be in person or virtual, there should still be a backup person to present the monthly report because treasurers, just like presidents, are mandated to be and preside at every meeting. And what was the other question about EIN numbers? What about it? Oh, how do you get one or what?
Carolyn, do you want to?
How can we get a bylaws copy sheets where we can write on and save? Oh, that's a great question. I did a lot of work on the bylaws. So you can ask for a copy of the bylaws. I mean, I don't know what school you're from. I can drop my email in the chat. I can definitely help you. Bylaws are public records. All schools should have their bylaws accessible. Bylaws are also accessible at every PTA meeting. So when you go to a general PTA meeting, somewhere either on the agenda or in person, there should be a copy of your bylaws because the bylaws have to exist at the school. If you don't, I can maybe help you write the email to get a copy of it, but it shouldn't be an issue. You can write an email to your principal, write an email to your PTA president, and ask for a copy of the bylaws. I know when I was treasurer. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have the bylaws, but my thing is, I need to write the revised one over. I went to the school, but the computers wasn't working at the school for me to do this. So I need to find a way to write the revised bylaws over.
Oh, I see. And so I did a lot of work on the bylaws, but my bylaws, I honestly inherited a very well put together copy digitally of the bylaws. So I'm not going to say I wrote all 20 pages. And actually, the bylaws I received were 37 pages. And I did editing down to 22. I don't know who wants to read 37 pages of bylaws. But we had a bylaws committee on at our school in 2023, and they did extensive work. And I actually think they manually hand typed the entire document and put it on a Google form. So when
That's what I'm trying to do.
a Google sheet, when you have something on a Google sheet, you're able to add notes and highlight. So I inherited a Google Sheet version of my bylaws, and that's how I pretty much edited the bylaws. So I didn't recreate them, but there was an entire committee the year before that rewrote all the bylaws. The only thing they didn't do was get the signatures, and that's the most important thing. Once the bylaws are officiated, if they're not signed, then they're not official. And so we ended up starting a year where I was a treasurer, and I was like, hey, the bylaws aren't signed. And I found myself in this position where I knew more about the bylaws than like anybody on the PTA. It's a little awkward. You don't want to be the person, you don't want to be the treasurer that knows more about the bylaws. But nonetheless, I did a lot of editing. And so on a Google Sheet, you can highlight a section, write a comment, and you can make it accessible to everyone. And so I opened up the bylaws to everyone on the e-board. So everyone had access to the document. Yes, it was editable. And you can highlight, you can ask a question, you can make a comment, someone can check resolve, someone can answer your question. And it just made it a more collaborative effort because now it wasn't just a group of people on this bylaws committee, it was the entire e-board now coming together to make the new bylaws. So my suggestion to you is, if you don't have an actual digital copy, you unfortunately may have to be typing them over, but do it on a Google Sheet so you can share with other people and it's an editable document. I don't think scanning it will be good. There are additional DOE supports. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Camille. But yeah, you can always ask for help from, someone that can help type them. But does that answer your question?
Not really, but I
No?
heard you.
Okay, wait, no, you
No.
can revise the question.
Carolyn, I'll also
Okay.
say that any questions that we don't have an exact answer for, we'll clock it and we'll also make sure to get back to you via email for some other way too as well.
Yes, I have the bylaws. They're already revised, right? Now, all I need to do is go on the computer and type them over. But the computers at the school was not working. So what I was trying to see if I can find something like that online so I can do it in my home to type it all over again. But it looks like I might have to just type the whole thing over from the first page to the 22 page.
Are you not able to access a document from your house?
That's what I want, a document where I can try to do it from my home.
Yeah,
There
if
might be
you
a
are able to
template.
share the document, you can share it to maybe your personal email address and share it to your personal email. And then when you get home, you can log in and edit it from your home.
Okay, I'm gonna try that, what you just said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if you have it digitally and it's on a Google Sheet, at the top there's a button that says share, and you should be able to click share and give the person you're sharing with it access to edit, not just view only. So you give them access to edit it and you put in your personal email address and send it to yourself. You should be able to access it from home.
Okay.
All right. I'm a little tech
Do
savvy.
you want to talk a little bit about audits and then we'll move on to the next slide?
Yeah. So, we actually don't have a lot of experience, believe it or not, at Arts and Letters with auditing. But like there are two different kinds of auditing. There's like an internal audit and an external audit. So you can internally audit your bylaws or your bank account just internally with a small group of parent volunteers, or you can do an external audit where you actually have other people outside of your school community come in and actually audit your books. So that's just making your records available for anyone to see all of your transactions. So, I don't know why we actually haven't audited the account. We probably should, but I think that there's been a continuity between treasurers, like because I was a treasurer maybe for so long, you usually audit when you leave and someone else takes over. But I don't know. Now I'm still president, so I'm still on the board. But we should audit. Maybe we should audit our books, right? We should do an audit. But audit just means that you're opening up your bank account and your books to a group of people to look through and basically see what you've been spending the money on. You know, does your monthly transaction reports match what we see in the books? Do the bank account statements match what you've been presenting? And just making sure there's checks and balances and there's no funny business going on, with the bank account. I'm proud to say that we do actually raise a lot of money. We raised almost $500,000. So it is important to have a lot of eyes on an account when you have that much money flowing in and flowing out, year to year. And then especially when you go and you merge a school and, so you really want to have a big handle on what's happening in the bank. Oh, so why have co-treasurers? Honestly, I'm gonna be honest. I feel like I need a co-president less than a co-treasurer. You need a co-treasurer. Like you absolutely having a co-treasurer. Let me give you a little story about how our unique situation at Arts and Letters 305 United. So I don't know if you know, but Arts and Letters 305 United is the first school in New York City to have an intentional merger. There was an article written about it by Appleseed, and our school, which was a school that had existed formerly in PS20, intentionally merged and integrated. So PS20 is in Clinton Hill, and we intentionally merged and integrated with a school in Bed-Stuy. One of the reasons for the merger was the building that we were in was over capacity. I believe at the time it was at 120% capacity, and we were on one floor in the building, and we were over capacity, and we had a waiting list. At the time, 305, I don't want to get the stats wrong, but I believe was at 40%. And they were under enrolled. And so when you have a school that's enrolled at 120% and you have a school that's at 40%, you really want to take advantage of that merger because we needed a space. We were on one floor with like 500 kids in a building. We needed space. And so we intentionally merged with another school in another community. And I was part of the merger. I was at the school at the time. My daughter was in kindergarten and I was not on the PTA yet. I was like getting FOMO. I wanted to get on the PTA so bad, but it was in a location that was not feasible for me. I couldn't get there. The PTA meetings were actually in the daytime. I worked. I was a full-time parent. And so as much as I wanted to be on the PTA at the old building, that wasn't possible. Fast forward to the future, we merged. As I stated earlier, I joined the PTA and it was in November. So there had already been an election. It was decided during the merger that we would have an uncontested election, which means that anyone that ran for the board at the time would get the seat that they ran for. And so I came in and I think I don't remember, like, I didn't know. So when I came to the first PTA meeting in September, I saw there was a vacancy. They wanted a treasurer. There was an open slot. I wrote my statement and I submitted. And then I was told that 2 other people had also submitted. So now there was a space, but I wouldn't be alone as a treasurer. I would be a co-treasurer of 3. And I wouldn't have to worry about winning or losing because it was a non-contested election. And I was like, great, what a great idea. I don't know. I don't have any experience. I don't know what it's like being a treasurer. It'd be great to run with 2 other people that want to also do this. And it happened to be 2 men that were in finance, that were like CEOs. And so I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to learn so much. And so I get there and not only are there co-treasurers, there's every position. And I think at that time, there were maybe 11 or 12 of us on the e-board. And so maybe there were like 2 or 3 presidents, 2 VP, 1 VP, maybe 3 secretaries, communication secretaries. I had never even known 11 people could be on a PTA. So, and that was my first experience. And then here we are, 5 years later in the merger, and we are still having uncontested elections, but these are not forced. So when you run for a position, you're given the opportunity to run for a single slate or a co-slate. And we just happen to have many years go by where everyone accepts their co-slate and we're running as co-slates. And so going back to answer the question, why have a co-treasurer? Even if there was no co-slates and the elections were contested, you want to have a co-treasurer. The responsibilities of the treasurer are massive. Now, if you're in a school that doesn't raise a lot of money and maybe doesn't have that many responsibilities and, you know, has smaller meetings, you might not need a co-treasurer. But if you're having events every month and you're having like, you know, you're raising six figures, even if you're raising like, you know, $50,000, $60,000, you want to have a co-treasurer. The amount of time and effort that it takes to even create a budget report, the monthly transaction reports. I mean, I found myself more busy as a treasurer than I do as a co-president. I'm actually like looking for things. I'm like, it's hard to calm down. But, and you want to have the support of having someone else be able to manage the checkbook. You know, maybe your main job is to write the checks. Their main job is to actually make the reports for the meetings. And that was a blessing. And most of the time I was presenting, I was the main face at the general PTA meetings presenting. And then my co-treasurers were doing the like background hard work of creating the budget reports, making sure the taxes were filed, making sure our 501c3s were intact. And I was really presenting and just co-signing. So it is important to have a buddy when you're a treasurer. And I think that's a wrap.
Thank you.
All right.
I took lots of notes. There was a lot of information there. Treasurer is certainly a huge job, and you are certainly a master at it. So we really appreciate all the insight you just gave. I'm probably going to be coming back to you with more questions down the road, and your perspective on the merger is really relevant given the class size bill, and I think there probably will be more mergers on the horizon. So this idea of co-slates could be something that starts to spread out, or we might see more and more of that at schools that merge. So next we have Kim Washington giving some tips on secretaries. Hi, Kim.
Hey, thank you, Trina. Well, I'm sorry, Katrina. I just want to piggyback off what you said about that. The responsibilities of that treasurer, they do far exceed, I guess, any other position, because I've also worn all three hats on the board, and that treasurer is very serious. With that, yes, I am here to speak about my experience as a PA secretary, which is not as, I'm going to say, not as busy as the other two positions on the exec board, but just as important as the other positions. Okay, so we're going to start with recording and preparing minutes at all PTA meetings. Take all the notes you can for these meetings. Write down what was said, write down what was decided at these meetings. If there's anything that was voted on, if there was anything that would be tabled for the next meeting. It's very important that you, sorry, let me plug in my laptop. It's very important that you keep these records. I know this from experience because when I first joined the PA at my school, there were no records of anything. There was no bylaws to be found. There were no minutes to be found. I had no idea why we were a PA as opposed to a PTA. When I asked for questions, I didn't have any answers. There was nothing to look back to and refer to. So I was kind of starting from scratch at that moment. and also like Katrina, here we are going into the pandemic. I couldn't really ask that many questions. Everything was disheveled. So, you know, I had a little bit of time on my hands at home, and I just started doing the great internet search. But it's very, very important because it tells a history of your PA. It helps assist, it can help assist in the audits that Katrina was speaking of, because how, why, where did this come from? Who decided that you can spend these funds? You know, so when you're approving these expenditures, keeping a record of it in your minutes is a good resource to have. And you have reading and distributing copies of these minutes at the next PA meeting. This is something that should be done at every meeting. What happened at the last meeting? Maybe somebody missed the last meeting. How are we doing this? Why are we deciding this? You know, so very important to take minutes, read minutes at each and every meeting. If you can't be there, very important also to have a backup. Have someone else that's going to record the minutes. Utilize all the tools you have. You might be writing these things down, but if you can record your meeting to refer back to the notes, maybe your meetings are very busy and complicated. Some people's meetings, some schools' meetings are a lot simpler than other school meetings, but it's very important to, a very good tool to do is back it up by, if it's on Zoom, you can record on Zoom. You can have a little recorder just to listen back in case you miss any important information that should be included in your minutes. Prepare notices, agendas, sign-in sheets, and materials for distribution. Who were the people that voted on these things at these meetings? Attendance is very important. You want to make sure that you record who was there in case you have to speak to anybody or back up how you came to a decision or how something was voted on and passed. You know who was there to do that. Preparing notices. I am an avid user of alarms. I have alarms. It's an alarm that you might hear in a couple of minutes reminding me that my girl should be winding down and, you know, turning off devices. I have all these alarms going on, and I use them to give out notices at the school. How far in advance do you have to give out these notices? Is there an election meeting? Putting out the notices 10 days in advance. Sometimes you could get caught up because you're only thinking about the date of the meeting. You might know that by heart, but what is the date that's 10 days in advance? You know, set these alarms, set blue things to help, you know, utilize calendars, utilize task management systems, whatever it is to help you kind of stay organized and, you know, get these materials distributed to your parents. Maintaining custody of the PA records on school premises. Now, in this day of the electronics, when we're sitting here and you might have minutes that you typed up, you put them in Google, you put them wherever you put, print a copy, leave that physical copy somewhere on the school premises. You can keep the electronic copy where you are, and it's great to have. But if something ever happens to that electronic copy, no one will be able to trace it. So it's good. Well, it's actually imperative that you actually keep a copy of the records on the school premises. Okay, incorporate all amendments into the bylaws and ensure that signed copies of the bylaws with the latest amendments are on file with the principal's office. And I know, I'm sorry, Carolyn, you asked that question about the bylaws. Again, we didn't have bylaws to get started. There is a template, and I believe it was shared, Anaya, in the chat. I don't know anybody that I have spoken to that did not use that template as their foundation, because it incorporates the rule, the A660 rules inside of it, and you just tweak it to you know, whatever your parents decide and vote on at your particular school. You can change it and edit it accordingly. But that is what we had to use to create our bylaws from scratch. So again, if there's any amendments, maybe you change, maybe you voted on changing the date, maybe you decided to have co-treasurers, decided to have co-presidents. How many years can this person serve? What happens if nobody else wants to serve? So these are things that might be amendments in your bylaws, just because maybe it just happened and it might be a first encounter of a situation that you might have to vote on and include in your bylaws. But again, just it's very important that if you do, maybe mid-year sometimes things happen and you have to update your bylaws, make sure that your amendments as well as your bylaws are on file in the PA records and with the principal's office. Okay, and review, maintain, and respond to all PA correspondence. Just basically reading and answering emails, letters, or any messages that you might get to your PA email, maybe because you gave your personal email. Very important that you respond to it. Aside from even like parents reaching out, there's some like organizations out there. I know there's one called PTO.org, and I just decided to read that, fill out something from my school, and we got all these free giveaways. I'm sitting here coming into this school year like, what are all these boxes and why are they addressed to me? I didn't know what it was, but that was just me combing through the emails, looking at stuff. Maybe my school can use this. Let me just respond. Let me fill this out. Let me do this. But it's very important because what I find is there's a common misconception that the PA or PTA are the executive members. I once did a poll and I asked everybody, every parents were sitting there, and I said, raise your hand if you're a part of the PA. No one raised their hand except for the executive board. And I had to explain to them, like, we're all a part of the PA. So what you might want to bring up is important. And, reach out to your PA, email them, send them messages, however you feel comfortable, and someone will respond to you. And, that person being the secretary, well, in my experience, more than one person, usually would respond to messages and things of that nature. But it's very important that you do acknowledge people when they are reaching out to you, to your executive board. Okay, and then assist with the June transfer of records to the incoming board. This is my girl's last year at this school, so I know next year I won't be a part of the school's PA. And I do not want the incoming parents to experience what I experienced when I got to the school. The bank transfer was seamless, but again, there were no records transferred over. I had no idea. I had no clue. I was just willing to be involved, but I had no clue as to what I was doing or how to do it. We were all new on the board. So that June transfer, I know it gets very busy in June. I feel like I can't even catch a breath in June sometimes, but prepare early. Have it start piling it up early. Start collecting it in the area however you feel you're going to transfer it over. Show them where the physical copies are, things of that nature. But it's very important that I feel that we leave the PA or PTA in a better position than we received it in, hopefully. And that assisting with the oncoming board and giving them something and giving them, the budget, minutes, minutes also tell the voice of what some of the parents that are still there think. You can read over minutes. You can sit here and, I guess, come to conclusion. Like you could get to know your school community, basically, is what I'm trying to say, by just revisiting minutes and stuff like that. So if you there's one major takeaway that I have, and I guess like again is because I didn't inherit much, is when it comes time to transfer, make sure that you assist that incoming executive board to the best of your ability. And I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I want to be cognizant of the time. I know we're kind of moving a little late now.
You're on mute, Antonia. Sorry. Thank you so much, Kim. That was great. Are there any questions for Kim in the chat? There's one question about the name of the site for the giveaways. If you want to add that into the chat.
I'm gonna answer in the chat.
Perfect.
Hey,
All
and
right.
we'll move on to our family leadership coordinator, Ed Castro. I was recently talking to some parents who did not know what a family leadership coordinator was, or who their family leadership coordinator was, or if they even had one. So we have one here today, and I'm hoping he can clear up everybody's lack of knowledge.
Hey friends, can you hear me? All right. So my name is Ed Castro. I'm the Family Leadership Coordinator for the Consortium International New York City Outward Bound District. We got 50 high schools in all 5 boroughs. I want to begin by giving a crazy big shout out to my friend Esther Maludo. She's also a FLC from Queens, I think District 25. Quiet as kept, she's probably better than me. I always say that community superintendents, FLCs, deal with more PTA support than high school. And once you get older, it's a little bit more difficult to get people involved. So I definitely feel like community superintendents. Also want to give a shout out to my good friend Angelica that's on the call as well. So overview of my role is I work for the superintendent's office. I work side by side with the family support coordinator, right? If somebody at your school has to call 311 about a complaint, about bullying, about a concern, that call goes to the family support coordinator. And so I'm the family leadership coordinator, and my role is to support PTAs, SOTs, the formation of CEPs across all my schools. I work in really like training the trainer and training the parent coordinators, right? And I support the parent coordinators and also share information with the PTA and SLTs. There's been a paradigm shift around SLT. There's a lot more progress monitoring and uploading information to a website called iPlan. And so I kind of support with that. There's also a lot more brainstorming and deadlines around CEPs. And so I'm a thought partner around that. I create a ton of templates, turnkey resources for my schools. I connect schools and PTAs with community-based organizations and partners. I also attend monthly President's Council meetings when all the PTA presidents come together. And I often present about the unique things going on in my district. I not as much as I should, but I attend CEC in high schools called CCHS meetings. And then everybody in this day and age does more than their job description. I also assist family support coordinator with escalations. I attend monthly train the trainers with FACE. I assist with principals conference. I run parent coordinators professional development. I help schools with enrollment and recruitment. Like kind of the point with the political liaison between elected officials and the schools. I help the schools get something called a Reso-A fund. I'm the AI innovation lead at this time. And so I'm just whatever, all hands on deck, right? And whatever they need, I'm there. So 3 ways your FLC can help you. Number 1, your FLC can give you advice. They can help you kind of break down. There's a spirit of the law and a letter of the law in Chancellor's A660 and A655. and they can kind of explain things to you and simplify things and help you like open a document, press Control F, what phrase to put to find certain quotes. They could connect you with resources, and then they could also, oftentimes I get booked in a thought partner session with PTA executive boards, and I kind of give them some ideas for the next quarter, how to approach some challenges, how to have asset-based thinking, a growth mindset, and all that stuff. So that's pretty much it. I want to also give a good shout out to my friend Camille, who does good work and also supports many schools with some building challenges, and she's supported my district many, many times before. And I want to say I love PTAlink and the work you guys are doing. I'm always pointing the website out to my PTA leaders, to my parent coordinators, because you guys do a great job in kind of paraphrasing everything and writing everything in a layman's terms. And I appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ed. At this point, I just want to open it up to Q&A for our FLC or any of the other panelists.
I just want to say that PTAlink was the saver for me when I didn't know any of these things, when I inherited nothing. I did utilize this site. No one has ever directed me to this site until I was asked to be on this panel. But this is where I went to get the good stuff.
Thank you so much. We love to hear that.
I know it's late and we've got you 7 minutes over. I'll say if there's any other questions that we do not get to, feel free. We will drop our like email hotline in the chat that we respond to. I will also uplift that there was one final question that I see that was asking about where parents where to put up a parent agenda, the agenda online for parents to see. And I know different PTAs have different processes for that. But I'm wondering if any of our guests want to share.
I can talk to that. We used to do multiple things actually with the agenda at the elementary school where I was the PTA president. I would hand out flyers in the schoolyard. We would post them on the interior bulletin board at the school. We had an exterior bulletin board at the school, and we had a website. And we would backpack flyers home. So we had a lot of different options to get people updated on what was happening. And we felt like the more information we put on the agenda, the better chance we had of getting more people to come to the table. So it wasn't just an agenda, president's report, treasury report, like kind of like a 3-line agenda. It had a lot, and we would always try to have some special speakers just to ensure that there would be some interest there. Thanks. I see Katrina has her hand up.
Hi, yes, thank you. Yeah, actually, we do something very similar. So we have like 3 different places where we post our agenda. So the agenda will go out on the newsletter. So we have our PTA newsletter. Then the school has a newsletter. So the PTA newsletter goes out twice a month. The school newsletter goes out once a month. And so the agenda will definitely be posted on one of the 3 newsletters. We also have our agendas usually posted on the website. And then we also have our WhatsApp chats. So we have our class parents that run the WhatsApp chats. And we also have a new person on our PTA, which I created this position. I'm a little excited, a graphics person. So we have a special graphics position on our e-board for all graphics. So every event that we do has a Jupiter Blast, which is followed up by a WhatsApp message, which is then also posted on the website and then also on social media. So we have our communications person who does the Facebook and the Instagram page, who's also the comms communication secretary on the e-board, who also does the website. She wears many hats, but we have a full circle system where we try to make sure the agenda goes out to like as many ways as possible. And of course, whenever we have an event called the Moth. The Moth brings out the most people because we have the PTA event, but then we also have a Moth style event where people come and they tell their personal story about their life. And I don't know if anybody is familiar with the Moth style of storytelling. It's a special event. We have mocktails going on by the garden committee. We have LGBTQ there. And then we also have the theater committee, which brings in the Moth. So we have like 3 committees that put on. Our attendance is like within the 200s on Moth meeting. Everybody comes out for the Moth. So it's definitely worthwhile to have teachers being interviewed at PTA meetings, some kind of event other than just the president's report, the treasurer's report, because yeah, people want to know what you're spending the money on, but sometimes it can get heavy with just like data, so you want to have something exciting on the agenda to bring people out. Thanks.
Wow. Ed, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, one strategy I try to share with my PTAs is to use your borough president's constituent support office and to reach out to them to ask them to send you a 4-minute video. I say 4 to 5 minutes because if they share it on Google Drive, it's easier to upload it on Google Slides and embed it in your presentation. And then also with the principal report, ask the principal not to share certain details. Like let your meeting be the first time they hear about the Halloween party. And let your meeting be the first time they hear about the Thanksgiving food luncheon. Let your meeting be in November be the first time to hear about the holiday party. Your December meeting about the details of the New Year's Eve party. And January about the Valentine's Day. Let like certain news be birthed in that meeting so everybody wants to be in the room. And also try to get your elected officials to send you some announcements and some video shout outs. And I think that kind of spurs up. And then also try to highlight a student group every month, because then at least those families will show up, right? So if it's the robotics team making a presentation, if it's the girls volleyball team making a pitch for fundraising, if it's the boys flag football team, that if you can kind of highlight a student group every month as well, whether in person or via video, that those families will be interested.
That's all really, really interesting. Katrina, if you ever want to write a post about the Moth, I'm fascinated, and I think others might be interested to hear and understand more about what the Moth event is all about. I feel like I just got a taste of it and I want to know more, if not come to one myself. So I really just want to thank all of my esteemed and talented presenters. Ed, thank you so much for coming out to this. I know you worked all day. I know everybody worked all day, and here it is almost 9 o'clock, and you've all given us so much to think about. Thank you, Camille. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you, Kim and Naya, of course, my director. I want to just point you all to the QR code on the screen. That will take you to a little link to a form where you can sign up to subscribe to our newsletter, and you will get a monthly newsletter. We don't send too many emails, so you will not be inundated. You will find out about our next presentations, about other topics that we have coming up. I think our next one is going to be about community building, possibly, and engagement. And we're also going to be presenting at the District 19 Family
empowerment event on November 16th. So that will be in our newsletter. You'll have more specific information how to attend that. I'll be presenting on roles and responsibilities and financial reporting. I may reach out to Katrina for more questions about that before I develop my presentation. And Candid will be presenting on grant writing and finding grants. So if you're interested in those topics, those will be covered at the District 19 Family Empowerment event. So please sign up for our newsletter. I can even drop the link in the chat too, but you can all just pull it off that QR code as well. And I will just say good night to everybody, I guess. Yep. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.
Night.
See if I can.
Good night, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you guys again. You guys are amazing.
You're welcome.
So much information. And we got to be in touch about we'll be in touch.